The Raiders held another round of OTAs that was open to the media, so how are the players and offensive coordinator Chip Kelly feeling at this stage of the game? That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 30th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Shows continuing to grow each and every day in a major way because of your support and the great job that my man Ari's doing behind the scenes, making us look good and sound good each and every day on YouTube. Without Ari, we couldn't do it. We wouldn't be doing this. So shout out to Ari. Big ups to him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And of course, you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do. We got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you as we close out the week, close out the show, all that good stuff. Segment number 3, a lot of really good stuff, a lot of great feedback. Of course, again, text, calls, all that. Segment number 3. Segment number 2, I want to focus in on offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. Got a couple sound bites from his press conference that he had following Thursday's OTAs. Just a couple of them. And it's nothing that's deep diving into the Raiders offense, but a couple things that stood out to me about what Chip Kelly had to say. So I want to focus on him and how important he's going to be for the Raiders moving forward, and really how important he is right now for the Raiders. We'll do that all in segment number 2. Here at segment number 1, it's just news and notes of the day, and really it's surrounded around Thursday's OTAs that was open to the media as well. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. And I wasn't available to be there while they were practicing. Practice opened up around 10:30 and wrapped up about 12:15, and I got there right at 12:15 as offensive coordinator Chip Kelly was about to take the podium and start to speak. So I got to talk to the players, talk to the coaches, Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator, A.J. Cole, the punter, Geno Smith, the quarterback, and Jacoby Myers, wide receiver. We got to talk to all those guys following practice. But a couple notes that came out of practice that I wanted to hit real quick. The good, Malcolm Koonce practiced. Right, last time that they had the OTAs that was open to the media, he was working in the swimming pool. He was still rehabbing. He's coming back from that torn ACL. So for the fact that he was out there practicing on Thursday, really good sign. I mean, of course, he's had the whole 2024 season to rehab, and, the Raiders aren't going to put him out there until he's 100%. But he did tell us that day that I'm getting close. Well, about a week later, a little bit over a week later, he's out there practicing. So I'm not saying that he's going to be full throttle every single time that they practice, but that's a great sign to see Malcolm Koonce back. You want him healthy. You want him to be out there and be ready to roll. Now, the bad, Christian Wilkins still was not practicing. Did not see him at all. Those were the notes that I asked a few of the media members that were there. Was there any Wilkins signing? No, didn't see him at all. Okay, so no Christian Wilkins. We know he's coming back still from that Jones fracture, and Pete Carroll, his words that it's a difficult and challenging injury to overcome. So, concern is starting to creep in as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Christian Wilkins, just because it's been, 7 months plus that he's been removed from this injury and, of course, been rehabbing and coming back from it. And remember seeing him around town in a walking boot. And then, as the OTAs opened up, he didn't have the walking boot with him. So there's a lot of back and forth on what's going on, what's not going on. But clearly Christian Wilkins is recovering slowly. The good thing is it's still May. Now, it'll be June by the end of the weekend, right? It'll be June 1st, the first of the month. Shout out to the Hood holiday. But yeah, it's just the reality is that they're not ready. They're not ready to play a game. It's not like they're preparing for the Patriots right now. So that's good. So he still has time. But as they get to mandatory minicamp, which is coming up in June 10th through 12th. Once that hits, and if he's not out there practicing, he'll be there because he's under contract. But if he's not out there practicing, then okay, then you say now he's going into the summer, and then what happens when he comes back for training camp? Does he start on the PUP list? Does he start and he's available? Then that's when I think the real concern hits, when training camp goes on. And if he's not out there, especially if he starts on the PUP list, that's when I have some pretty big concern. Also, Adam Butler did not practice and Jeremy Chin did not practice, but Pete Carroll did not speak, so none of us had an opportunity to ask why those guys weren't available. Again, remember, it's voluntary practice, so it's not like they have to be there, but it was just noted that they weren't there. Also, to Sean Reed from The Athletic, he actually noted that Darian Porter and Eric Stokes have been the starting cornerbacks. I thought that was pretty interesting only because I've penciled in Jacorian Bennett, but, we heard from Marcus Robertson on yesterday's show. He was one of the guys that we had an opportunity to catch up with at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, the defensive assistant. And, of course, I always say DBs win games. And so I mentioned JB, and he said he's got to learn the stance. He's got to learn the technique. He's got to learn. Well, he's running with the second team right now. Now, remember, he's still coming back from injury that he suffered and ended up on IR at the end of 2024 season. But I do find it interesting that rookie Darian Porter, rookie out of Iowa State, who I have high hopes on, and then Eric Stokes, a guy who was a former first-round pick, but he's been injured a lot when he was with Green Bay, signed a one-year deal with the Silver and Black. Those two are the guys that are starting. Now, again, it's May, so it's not like they're preparing for the Patriots. I want to make sure I keep on re-emphasizing that. So it's not like, hey, man, these guys, these are the starting cornerbacks, no doubt about it. There's a long way to go between now and then. But just interesting that those are the two starters as of right now. Of course, both those guys have the size and they have the speed to fit and match with what Pete Carroll wants to do. So that'll be interesting to see how the cornerback competition really shapes up. That's something that, I've talked about. I'm not concerned about the room. I'm curious about the room of how it's going to, really play out. So those are a couple notes from Thursday's OTAs. Now, I wanted to let you hear from a couple of the players. Again, Geno Smith, Jacoby Myers, A.J. Cole, guys that we got an opportunity to talk to, and you'll hear from Chip Kelly, the offensive coordinator, coming up in segment number 2. But off top, here's Geno Smith. I asked him about working with Chip Kelly, someone that recruited him, tried to get him to go to Oregon where he was at, but obviously he ended up at West Virginia. And then there's a follow-up about what the Raiders offense is going to look like as well.
Geno, what is it like working with Chip Kelly? He recruited you, and now you're playing for him.
In many ways, it's a dream come true because I've always revered Coach Kelly, and I've always thought he's been an excellent coach throughout his career and a guy who I've, really, wanted to play for, even back then when I was in high school. It didn't work out that way, but, God works in mysterious ways, and here we are today in Las Vegas. And so, being with Chip, you get to know him as a man, know what he's about, outstanding human being, but also just a great mind. And, he has a great mind for football and understands how to motivate guys, and I think that's a really good trait that he has.
How would you describe this offense?
I think the offense is, like I say all the time, we want to be efficient. That's the main thing, right? We want to do well in the situations, the third downs, the red zones, but also we want to be explosive, and so when teams come up and play us in man-to-man, we got guys who are going to win those matchups, and, I really feel good about where we are. Still a work in progress, but we're in a good spot, and, we just got to keep working hard to get better.
So Geno says, a dream come true, great mind for football, and I don't disagree with any of that. Right. And I think that's really cool that he's getting this opportunity to play under Chip Kelly. And look, he was in a very explosive offense when he was at West Virginia. So it's not like he can't handle a very explosive offense. And obviously Chip Kelly's offense has evolved from where it was at Oregon and what Geno Smith was running at West Virginia to where he is now, right, with the Raiders as their offensive coordinator. But then talking about, the offense, efficient, situational football, they got to be smart with, explosive. There's that word. I like that. And then when they have the opportunity for those one-on-one battles, they're thinking that they can win those, which means they're going to be taking some shots, something that we didn't see a lot of in 2024. Hell, we didn't see a lot of it in 2023 either. They've got to be able to stretch the field, take some shots. They have some guys that they believe can do that, and that'll be interesting, and that'll be fun moving forward. Jacoby Myers is another player that we had the opportunity to catch up with. And, he's always a chill and positive type dude. He's always, real. He's not going to say a whole lot, but he's also you're not going to see him complaining. You're not going to see him get upset or anything. So I just asked him about the positive vibes that are around the building with the team right now and, how all that's playing out.
You always have a positive mindset, but it seems like there's a lot of positivity around the organization right now. How are you feeling and how is that positivity going?
It's pretty cool. Honestly, all the young guys are real excited. So I ain't old yet, but I feel a little bit old, but it definitely gives you a little energy when them boys come in here and they ready to go to work every day. Because it hasn't been easy. Like, they pushing us, we working hard, and ain't nobody complaining, so I can't complain.
Again, Jacoby's not going to be a guy that has a whole lot to say, but it's been cool, right? He's not old yet. That was pretty funny. Young guys providing energy, positive vibes in the building as well. And that's a good point that he brings up when it comes to the young guys providing energy and excitement in the building, because sometimes the young guys will come in and they'll be so fired up for their opportunity that kind of personality that becomes infectious, right? And so even a guy that has more time in the league like Jacoby can all of a sudden start to think, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm fired up as well. And so, Pete Carroll always does really well with young players, and I'm sure that has something to do with creating that culture, creating that energy, creating that positive vibe that he's trying to get not only in the locker room, but in the building in general, comes from a lot of those young players. So I thought that was a pretty interesting little nugget there from Jacoby Myers. And the final soundbite that I want you to hear, segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, we'll get to Chip Kelly coming up in segment number 2, is from punter A.J. Cole. We know he got the contract extension, 4 years. He's going to be with the team for 5 years. When his press conference wrapped up, he said, all right, see you guys for the next 5 years. So he's pretty excited. He's pretty pumped up that he got that contract extension. And remember, he told the story to Jordan Schultz about, thinking that 3-day mini camp that he had in Oakland, right, the tryout basically, that was going to be the last 3 days of football in his career. He's going to take a job with IBM. So I had to ask him about it, so I did. Check it out.
AJ, you mentioned going into that 3-day mini camp in Oakland, you thought this might be my last 3 days of football. Now here you are, here all these years later. How's that feel? What do you think about it when you think about this?
Yeah, it feels unbelievable. I mean, I just feel like I'm on so much borrowed time. And I showed up to that mini camp, and I really just felt like this could be it. And I'm going to go in every single one of these 3 days, and I'm going to get all the juice I can. And I've been trying to keep that same mentality. And I'm just on absolute borrowed time. I enjoy it every single day. I don't think there's anybody that has more fun at work than I do. It's such a blessing.
You're not calling IBM anytime soon?
No, IBM, I'm never showing up.
I like that. That was a good answer. And that's the kind of answer that you want from a guy that just got a contract extension, a guy who's been around a little while, right? Borrowed time. Has the most fun at work. Nobody has more fun at work than he does, right? That's what you like. Tries to get as much juice as possible, which is what he described that 3-day minicamp. I want to get as much juice as possible, and that's what I do to this day, right? That goes back to guys getting contract extensions like a Max Crosby who don't get fat and happy. They just say, okay, more is required. Let's get to work. A.J. Cole gets a contract extension. He's not going to get fat and happy. He's going to keep grinding. He's going to keep working. I know this isn't a baseball show, but you can look what's going on with the New York Mets if you follow baseball. Juan Soto got the fattest contract. Look what he's doing right now. And I know it's early in the baseball season, but I mean, there's reports of he's just kind of acting like he doesn't really care. He's just there. His body language is bad. Yeah, look at the money he's making, right? I mean, it looks like early stages of getting fat and happy. When you give a contract extension to these guys, you want to make sure you give contract extension, especially if you're giving them big money, to the right guys that aren't going to get fat and happy, guys that are going to stay motivated, guys that are going to keep on grinding, guys that want more, right? Max Crosby, you can give him as much money as he could ever ask for, and he's going to still get up early, be the first one at the facility, be the last one to leave. Like, he's still going to have that mentality of being a 4th-round pick. And he's got to scratch and claw and fight for everything he's got, right? The same guy that had to go and get his hand wrapped up in the preseason game back in Oakland when he broke his hand. He was scared that he's not going to make the squad. He's still that guy, even though he's a superstar in the league, right? Those are the guys you want to give the money to. It's always so hard to determine, right? Especially when guys are in contract years. Did they have that big year because they were in a contract year, or did they have that big year because that's who they are? But A.J. Cole, he's not one of those guys that you have to worry about. Just like Cash Money Carlson, not a guy you have to worry about getting fat and happy when he gets a contract extension. So next up, next week, June 2nd through 5th, that's another round of OTAs. And one of those days will be available to be out there and talk to coaches and players as well. And then mandatory minicamp. If you're under contract, you must be there. If you're not there at mandatory minicamp and you're under contract, you will get fined, and that's non-negotiable. You have to be there for that. The only Raider that's not under contract right now is second-round pick Jack Besh. Matter of fact, 30 of 32 second-round picks have not been signed to their rookie contract yet, so that's something to start paying attention to because he definitely needs to be signed before June 10th through 12th because he has to be there for mandatory minicamp, but he can't be there if he's not under contract, so definitely something to pay attention to. Coming up in segment number 2, Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly talks about Ashton Jeanty and offenses, the evolution of offenses since he was back at Oregon to where he is now. That and plus more I'll explain coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about FanDuel, great sponsor here on the show. And with the NBA playoffs in full swing, we know that the Oklahoma City Thunder, they punched their ticket to the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers, Not so fast, right? The New York Knicks forced the game 6, so we'll see what happens. But every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. Player props, performance trends, same-game parlays, yeah, they got it. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win really big. Plus, $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits if you're new to FanDuel. How cool is that? You want to be a part of that? You can. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets just like that. Remember where you heard that first, right? Make every moment more with FanDuel as the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. You heard from players Geno Smith, Jacoby Myers, A.J. Cole in segment number 1. Now, the offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, we got an opportunity to catch up with him and talk with him on Thursday at OTAs. It was open to the media. He talked for about 17 or 18 minutes. You can go hear the whole thing, Raiders.com, if you didn't check it out, if you haven't heard it already. That's cool. I just pulled a couple clips that I thought were pretty, meaningful and had a little something to say. And, of course, want to talk about Chip Kelly and the importance he's going to have, the role he's going to play with the Silver and Black moving forward as we talk about this team being one that's serious. It's not an unserious team. It's not for entertainment purposes only, but it's a team that has an opportunity to be a pretty good team, especially with this offense and the weapons that they have. But one question that I knew was going to be asked to Chip Kelly, my guy Adam Hill from the RJ and the sister station that I work at, ESPN Las Vegas, asked the question about Ashton Jeanty and his stance, because that's become a big deal. But I like what Chip Kelly had to say, and actually, he's not the one who called the shots on that one. Check it out.
Ashton made a lot of headlines when he said you asked him to change his stance.
All right, let's get that clarified.
Okay.
Dylan McCullough, our running back coach, is in charge of stances, steps, alignments, assignments, and techniques. So he talked to him about that. I gave him an analogy of an athlete being in a bent knee position to make a play, and that kind of got blown into. I haven't told anybody on this team to be in any stances because I don't coach a position. So, but it's a bent knee game. Baseball is, if you look at before the ball snapped in baseball or the pitch is thrown in baseball, everybody's got their knees bent. In any athletic sport you're playing, you got to bend your knees. And if you got to run a flat route on Fred Warner, you better be in a position to run because that dude can fly. So all we're trying to do is put guys in positions to make plays, and he's adapted really well from going from here to here. So it literally is about 3 inches. So I really don't think that is that big a deal. So, but he's awesome, and he's such a coachable guy that you can do a lot of things with him. I think he can play in the slot. He can play in the backfield. He can do a lot of different things. So that's he's special.
So Dylan McCullough, running back coach, he suggested it. I like how Chip Kelly kind of broke it down. He's like, man, look, hold on. Let me just get this straight. And it's only about 3 inches. It's not a big difference, but I thought he made a great point when it came to talking about running away from Fred Warner, stud linebacker for the 49ers. Like, you've got to be in a stance ready to go. If you're standing up straight up and down, right, that might not be the way to go. You need to be already hunched over, just like any other position. Like, he broke it down. He said he just gave the example. But the running back coach, Dylan McCullough, who's been around for a very, very long time, a well-respected running back coach, a guy that was at Notre Dame last year, working with Jeremiah Love. He's worked with some really good running backs before. Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll both recruited him to be the offensive or the running back coach for the Raiders. He's a guy that's very well respected. Matter of fact, I had an opportunity on Thursday on my radio show to talk to Robert Turbin, former NFL running back. He's a Super Bowl champ. He played for Pete Carroll in Seattle, and he had a really good conversation. Matter of fact, I might bring that to the show on Monday. But he said that he wasn't a fan of changing Ashton Jeanty's stance, but he also acknowledged that, McCullough's a really good running back coach. So if that's his suggestion, it could be for timing, and that he probably knows better. But he said, just from my personal preference, I don't like it, but I get it, right? And so it's also something that it's May. So if they tinker with it and he doesn't like it, they don't think that it's effective, or maybe he even proves himself, then maybe he goes back to the way that he was doing it. But again, he acknowledged how good the running back coach is for the Raiders. So that, to me, made me feel a lot better about that. Then I asked a question to Chip about the evolution of offenses from the time that he was at Oregon, went to Ohio State, won a national championship, and now he's with the Raiders. And obviously he's had multiple stops in between there and with the Raiders now. But just wanted to kind of get his thoughts on the evolution of offenses, just to kind of go inside his mind and hear what he thinks about offenses. Check it out. Really lengthy answer, but I thought a very good answer.
Coach, how have you seen the evolution of offenses from the time high flying there in Oregon, winning national championship last year, where you are now, back in the NFL, and offensive skill players as well?
Yeah, I mean, the game is cyclical. You know, I go way back with the first time the Dallas Cowboys and Tom Landry ran the shotgun. They were like, what was that? But that was single wing football that people had been running for all the time, and Dutch Myers and TCU was doing it in the 50s with 5 wide receivers and running around, and everybody thinks, well, they've got all these wide receivers on the field. They did that before. You know, the game goes on and on if you're a historian of the game, and I enjoy that part of it, but I still think it's still about fundamentals. It's still about who can block the best and who can keep their quarterback clean so that he can throw routes, who can sink, plant, cut, and create separation so that they can catch the football when it's thrown to them. You know, who tackles better on defense? You know, can you make a guy miss in the open field, or does the unblocked guy make the play? It's still a fundamental game, but it takes ebbs and flows, and it's neat watching its evolution and how it goes from this to this to this, because if the defense has an advantage, somehow the offense catches up, and then they have to change, and then the offense comes up with something new, or something they think is new, but that all they're doing is studying what people did in the way past. You know, you look at some of the things that like Josh Allen's doing, or Lamar Jackson, that's single wing football where you're snapping it to the quarterback, and he becomes an extra back because he's not the running back. He's actually a quarterback that can run, and that's a different level. You had never really seen that in the NFL before, like people that were really going to run the quarterback, you know, because is he going to last and play the next game? Now, when you have 2 special talents like that, you can do that. So it's been fun to watch it, you know, and I think the guys that are really good at it can figure out what's the best thing to apply to the group they have based on the personnel that they have. So I'm always a fan to kind of see what's next, and then once you see what's next, is that applicable to what we do, or is that, you know, that's good, but I don't think because of what we have personnel wise that kind of fits what we do. So you just kind of file it away, and then maybe a year or 2 later, if one of those players comes into your program or organization, then you can say, hey, you know, we could kind of start to do a little bit what those guys are doing over there because we have a similar type player. But it's always about, like you said earlier, adapting your personnel and finding out what their strengths are and then trying to play to those strengths. So
I love how he went to the history of offenses first, right? Talking about shotgun, talking about a whole bunch of different styles of offense. You know, the fact that it always repeats itself, it always comes full circle. Everything always goes back to fundamentals. And then if he sees something that he likes, or he sees something that's, well, next, does that fit in with what we do here with the personnel that we have? Again, that was a very lengthy answer from Chip Kelly, but I liked it because, again, you could tell how much he's a historian, how much he loves studying it. You heard what he said. He loves studying offenses. That's how guys get creative, right? And not only is he looking at different offenses and evolving and seeing what he can implement, he's also creating. He's also been the guy that is, you know, in the forefront of creating offenses that others are using around the league, around college football, whatever the case may be. And I'm excited about him, right? I mean, he's going to be a guy, and I don't think we talk about Chip Kelly enough. We always like to talk about the head coach. We always talk about the players, and sometimes we talk about the defensive coordinator. But unless the offense is really bad, we don't really talk about the offensive coordinator a whole lot, and I don't think we've talked about Chip Kelly a whole lot. But with the weapons that he has, I've talked about it a couple times when it comes to not needing a running quarterback, but a running game. And I felt like that's what he was kind of alluding to, that he didn't necessarily have a running quarterback in Geno Smith, but he does have a running game, right? When he started talking about Lamar and Josh Allen, like, he doesn't have a guy like that. Now, if they ever get a guy like that, then he can implement that into their offense. That's kind of one of the takeaways I took from what he had to say there. But I just think that with what he has and knowing the personnel that he has, knowing that he recruited Geno Smith, he knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. He's not going to put him in a position to fail. And he knows what these other weapons can do. Right? He knows that Jacoby Myers is sure-handed. He knows that he's a really good blocker. He knows that Brock Bowers is phenomenal, right? I mean, he was asked multiple questions on Thursday about Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is just scratching the surface. I expect him to be even better this year, right? And it might not even mean that he's going to have more catches, but he'll probably be more effective, right? And he talked about Big Mike. He was asked about, matter of fact, Vinny Bonsignore asked him about Big Mike, and he said, hey, man, last I checked, we were allowed to play with 2 tight ends. We can even have 3 tight ends on the field at the same time. So he's not looking at Big Mike like a throwaway, right? He's not looking at Big Mike and saying, I don't know about him. He hasn't produced the first 2 years in the league. Obviously, Josh McDaniels never really used Big Mike the right way, and then last year was kind of a wash because he stepped away. But it sounds like Big Mike is very much in the idea of the offense. When he was answering the question about Ashton Genty's stance, he was talking about him lining up in the slot, right? That also goes to what Ashton Genty's trainer, when he joined my radio show, was talking about, right? About his receiving skills. So you could see already, almost when I was talking with Chip Kelly, you could see like the wheels turning in his head, right? When he's talking about different offenses, it's almost like the creativity. It's like a mad scientist. Like he's drawing something up on the chalkboard right now. So I just think that he's going to be so important to make sure that this team is set up for success, keeping the defenses off balance. He talked about once, defenses find a way to stop something, then you've got to be able to adjust and come to something else. Like, this is so much different, and I feel like going to be so much better than the vanilla, plain, boring, predictable offense that the Raiders had with Luke Getsy and really have had over the past few years, even with Josh McDaniels, who I thought was a very creative offensive mind. I think he's a really good offensive coordinator. I thought his offense was going to look good when he was with the Raiders, and it really didn't. It was very predictable. It was very vanilla. It was very boring. And I don't know why that was, except for, of course, he's going to blame the players. Oh, the players, this, that, and the other. I can't open up the playbook. I don't know what it is, but he never was able to get things going. Right. And he's done that before, even when he was in New England. So I don't really know what the disconnect is. Maybe it's just too much to handle as the head coach. That probably was the situation. But Chip Kelly's got a real opportunity now. Right. And just who knows, he's been paid a lot of money. So I don't know what his end all be all goal is. But, does he want to be a head coach? If he does, and all of a sudden the Raiders offense looks really, really good, which I think it's going to have a chance to do this year, as long as the offensive line does what they're supposed to do, right? Hold up their end of the bargain. I think the rest will handle itself. I mean, he could easily be a guy that someone's looking at as a head coach, right? I mean, the Raiders might have to fight to keep him, which, again, will be a good thing. That means that the Raiders offense is really good. I think that they have an opportunity. Talking with him and just hearing about the different offenses and the evolution of it and the fact that, he loves the history of it makes me feel like there's a lot there that he could bring to the table. I don't think he's going to overload these guys. I think he's going to spoon feed them. But as the days go by, the weeks go by, different little mini camps go by, training camp goes by, preseason goes by, weeks, week 1 through 4, then all of a sudden, 4 through 8, and everything keeps evolving. I think you're going to see this offense continue to grow. So that, to me, is something exciting. I couldn't tell you the last time we saw a real deal creative offense with the silver and black. It's been a while. Let's put it like that. It's been a while. 2016 was good for the Raiders. I'll say the Hugh Jackson-led offense was good for the Raiders. John Gruden maybe in 2021 was really cooking before it all fell apart. But, I mean, it's the fact that I can name those 3 kind of lets you know how long it's been since the Raiders have had a consistently strong offense. I think they have a real deal opportunity to do just that. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts are coming up next. 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show hearing from you here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. We'll start things off with a call from the 916. Didn't catch his name on here, but he's calling to talk about the normal perception about the Raiders as opposed to what we've been hearing this year and the part that is a true bummer of what is usually being said. Here it is, a call from the 916.
Just really quickly wanted to respond to what you talked about, how in the previous episode, you talked about how national media is more often than not against the Raiders and how it feels really good to have the national media saying positive things about the Raiders as opposed to predicting that they go 4-13 or whatever every year. I agree with that. It does feel really good. However, what kind of bums me out is just how often they're right about the Raiders. I think sometimes us as Raider fans, we love our team. We're Raider fans, so it's hard not to feel optimistic in the off season. And because we're kind of in the eye of the storm, so to speak, it's harder for us to see like a top level objective view of our team because, we're always saying, oh man, if this guy can step up a level and if this other player can step up a level and if Max Crosby could have a Pro Bowl year and if, so-and-so, is able to get, 15 touchdowns this season, like we're going to be in the playoffs or whatever, It's so easy for us to have the optimistic outlook when, the people from the national media who watch all the teams, maybe it's a little easier for them since they are watching, so much football. It's easier for them to kind of see, oh yeah, the Raiders, they're far away from where they need to be in order to compete. But, that's all I really had to say, Q. Thank you again for all that you do, and go Raiders.
Great call. Thanks so much. Sorry I didn't catch your name, but you're spot on, right? And that's why I try not to just, use that cop-out of, the media is hating on the Raiders, because a lot of times whatever they say, they're not going to win very many games. They don't have a quarterback. Their offensive line stinks. Their running game's not there. They don't have a defense. Whatever the case may be, a lot of times they'll say something and it comes to fruition, even though it sounds disrespectful, it sounds hateful, it sounds like they're just poo-pooing on the Raiders because that's the fun thing to do. A lot of times it's not that way, and that's why I've been trying to bring as much positive sound or just sound in general from, the national media to the show to let it be known that that's not the case, right? People are talking very positively about the Raiders. I still remember last year when Greeny was trying to call out AP for, remember the Mahomes rules? I called him out. I mean, hell, I was doing game night on ESPN radio then. I called him out on the show, played the sound. That's when he was like, I'm not trying to be a fuddy-duddy. And I was like, well, you are, right? You're talking about the commissioner should find the head coach and, Mahomes is your big-ticket guy. You can't have him injured. And I was like, wait, hold on. AP didn't say go out and injure him. He just said you got to put hands on him. That's the way to beat him. And, by the way, how did the Eagles beat him in the Super Bowl? By putting hands on him, right? By going out there and being aggressive and punching the Chiefs in the mouth. AP wasn't wrong, but it was just so funny the way that Greeny was trying to attack the Raiders and, the commissioner needs to fine him and, you want to hurt him. He never said that. He never said that. And so I called him out. He don't know who I am. Even when I was filling in on his show, he don't know who I am. So he ain't worried about what I'm saying. But that was one time where it was just because it was the Raiders and Antonio Pierce said it and he's not, some head coach that's a Hall of Fame head coach or someone that, the national media respects like that on that level. But outside of that, I just feel like that there's been a lot of real positive momentum and conversations when it comes to the Raiders from the outside media, not just, here on the podcast or Raider Nation Radio 920 or, the local media that's around the team, but people from the outside are definitely recognizing. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Next time you call, man, make sure you let me know your name, though, as well. Up next, got a text from Johnny Raider. Says, what's up, Q? What's up, Ari? Johnny Raider here from the LBC. I texted in once before a couple seasons ago, but I listen to this and your radio show pretty much every day. I'm excited about this upcoming season and all the new additions. Hard not to be with all the good press they're getting for once in my life. But the main reason I'm texting is because I was listening today, Wednesday, May 28th radio show, and you had a caller named Just Win Wendy call in. I wanted to see if you could follow up on a statement she made regarding Geno Smith being the fastest guy on the Seahawks last year. I heard that once somewhere else, but I find it hard to believe when you had guys like DK Metcalf and Tariq Woolen on the team. If that's a fact, that's amazing. It makes me even more excited. Regardless, he's a lot more mobile than anyone we've had in a long, long time at the quarterback position. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to follow up on that, and thank you so much for all that you do. Really awesome getting Raiders content every single weekday. Take care of yourself. Love on your family. Just win, baby. Raiders. That's from our guy, Johnny Raider. Thanks for the text. Appreciate you. Sorry I got to it a couple days later. But, yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that because that statement that she made, it did stand out to me. I didn't follow up on it. But there's no way that Geno Smith is faster than DK Metcalf or Tariq Woolen, like you mentioned. Now, he was probably the fastest quarterback in the room. I have no doubt about that. But DK was just an animal, man. You know how fast he is. There's no way Geno is quicker than him. But he is definitely more mobile than any quarterback that the Raiders have had in a while. And I think that that's going to be something, as I was talking about Chip Kelly and his offense in segment number 2, I think that's something that Chip Kelly is going to be able to implement. Now, he's not going to set him up to get hurt. He's not going to sit there and run him all the time. He's not going to turn into Jaden Daniels or, guys like that, or even Jalen Hurts. But the fact that element's there, I'm sure you'll see some RPOs. I'm sure you'll see him pick up some first downs. And more importantly, what I really care about the most is he can keep plays alive. If he has to pick up 3rd and 8 because nobody's open and he has to scramble for it, he will. I like the fact that he's tough as nails as well. I don't remember what year it was, but there was a year where he was playing for the Seahawks and he was running down the sideline against the Raiders, and somebody drilled him. I can't remember who it was. They drilled him, and he flew out of bounds. He might have been with the Jets at that time. I think he was with the Jets at that time because I want to say it was in Oakland. But either way, he got drilled. The dude's tough as nails, right? I mean, you don't want him out there taking big hits, but not only is he willing to run, he's also willing to take a hit. So I'm excited about that because, again, all I ask is pick up 3rd and 8. Pick up 3rd and 9, right? If there's some green grass and you don't have anywhere to throw the ball, just go get it. Go get that first down. Just take off. You've got to be able to have that element, and that's something that he does have. And for the first time, a Raiders quarterback has it and is willing to use it. That is big time as far as I'm concerned. Thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Jacob in Wilmington, North Carolina, calling to ask a question about the salary cap and then also drops a breakout player name as well. Here he is, Jacob in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Thank you. Hey, Ari. This is Jacob from Wilmington, North Carolina. Terradex.com. Check it out if you can. Anyways, that's my little business. Q, Ari, this is the second time I'm calling because the first time I felt like I sounded like a putz. Anyways, I wanted to know, the 40, I think we got $40-50 million still to spend on free agents, right? What happens if we don't spend that? Does it get rolled over into 2026? I don't know how it works. Or does it go into Tom Brady and Mark Davis's pockets? I'm not sure. So if you could break that down, how it works, that would be hecka cool. Personally, I want to give an extension to Colton Miller and Jacoby Myers. Those are our guys. I'd like to keep them. And, if we got the money to spend it on our guys, I'm all about that. And you talked about breakout players, and I just got a feeling DeCamerion Richardson, the cornerback from last year's draft, I have a feeling that he's going to break out this year. That's my own personal pick. Anyways, Q, Ari, Raider Nation, hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. So heck yeah, just win, baby.
Jacob, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, the Raiders have about $28 million after the A.J. Cole extension, right? They have about $28 million usable salary cap space, like realistic salary cap space right now. They don't have to spend it, and no, it doesn't go in the pocket of Tom Brady or MD. It does get rolled over until next season, and right now they're slotted to have over $90 million in salary cap space. Now, they're going to probably spend some money. They're going to have some contract extensions. It's not going to be just quite, just like that. Oh man, they're going to have over $100-something million. They're going to have a nice chunk of change right now. If you go to overthecap.com and check it out, again, they're at 90-something million. I think they're second. The only team that has more salary cap space for 2026 is the Chargers. So, things would get worked out. I would like to see them extend Colton Miller. I'd like to see him extend. Jacoby Myers, like you mentioned, those are two guys that we talked about just the other day. It sounded like talking to Jacoby on Thursday that there could be a potential that they're working on an extension right now. He said that he wants to stay with the Raiders, but it's up to, it's a business side of things. It's up to his agents and the guys upstairs. So it sounds like they're working on it, but he didn't say too much. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Colton Miller has been pretty quiet on that front, so I don't know where that's at this stage of the game. When it comes to DCAM, he could be a breakout guy, right? I've been saying it for a while. He had a lot of burn his rookie year. It wasn't a lot of good burn. I mean, there was a lot of mistakes that he made. It was kind of being thrown into the fire, but that's a great way to learn, right? So he has that. He has the size and the speed to be a prototypical Pete Carroll defensive back, right? I mean, there's something you can't teach. Size and speed. He has both. Now he just needs to learn the technique. And, the cover three, defense is something where, if he's able to do it, he should be able to, keep his eyes on the quarterback, understand his zone coverage, understand how to break on the ball. But it's also a technique that they've got to learn, right? And so that, and then when they switch things up and go in different looks and, they go press man, he's got to be able to flip into do press man, right? So there's a lot of learning he has to do. But he has the raw talent, especially with the size and speed, something that you can't teach. So we'll see if he can pick something up, or if he's going to struggle again, and maybe just be some quality depth along that in the cornerback room, I should say. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, I just got time for a couple more. A text from Montgomery Raiders says, "Hey Q, Montgomery Raider from Northeast Mississippi. First-time texter, but been listening ever since we traded for Devontae. I have a prediction for you. I think Jacoby Myers will be the unquestioned wide receiver one. I mean, he nearly had, if not exactly, a 0% drop rate with Aiden O'Connell and Minshew. And what I mean by that is he'll be an unquestioned elite wide receiver number one. You can't have a 0% drop rate and not be at least borderline elite. Now, I'm an Aiden O'Connell fan, but still I don't think that gets enough credit. Now, we have Geno Smith, who's tiers above those guys. I think it's going to be a good season for him. Anyway, Q, let me know what you think about that. Appreciate what you do. Just win, baby. That's Montgomery Raider. First time texting in. Appreciate that. And, yeah, I mean, you don't have to sell me on Jacoby Myers. I'm been sold. And the thing about it is he was wide receiver number one in New England out of default, right? He was the best wide receiver that they had, and they needed him to play big time, and he did. And you're right, 0% drop rate last season with O'Connell and Minshew and Desmond Ridder throwing on the ball, went over 1,000 yards. He could absolutely be that guy, especially because you know all the attention Brock Bowers is going to be getting. You know that the guys that can stretch the field like Dante Thornton and Trey Tucker, they're going to be getting some attention. And, oh, by the way, there's some running back named Ashton Genty who's going to get a lot of the focus as well from the defense. So this really could end up being a year where Jacoby Myers really breaks out. I mean, he could end up being that breakout player that we talked about. Even though I think he's already established, he could take his game to the next level. There's no doubt about that. He could be the security blanket that Geno Smith really, truly needs, a guy that just finds a way to get open. I can never tell this story enough. His first year with the Raiders, we're sitting there at the media day inside the indoor facility at the Raiders facility. It's me, JT the Brick, and Eric Allen, and EA is sitting right next to Jacoby, and he starts asking him, how do you get open? As a wide receiver, how do you get open? I'm a DB. I'm pretty good. Now he's a Hall of Famer. But he said, how do you get open? He said, I just do. Well, what does that mean? I'm a DB. I study film. How do you get open? Yeah, but I just get open. You know, you're doing everything backwards. I know where I'm going. I just get open, right? And it's so funny. It almost frustrated EA because he was so nonchalant about it. And EA is like, wait, hold on. You're just not going to get open on me. But Jacoby's just like, yeah, I'm just going to get open. And that's absolutely what he does. Me and EA laugh about that all the time, that Jacoby just finds a way to get open, just like he said. It's not, because he's the extreme athlete. It's not because he can jump out the gym. It's just he just does it. He's a really good technician. And even when Devontae was still with the Raiders, he said after his first year, he learned a lot from Jacoby Myers about getting open. And Devontae is an elite route runner, right? Elite wide receiver. I think we all would agree with that, even though it didn't play out the way that it should have with the Raiders and Devontae, but I think we would all agree he's upper echelon wide receiver, and he's talking about how much he learned from Jacoby. So, no, I don't think that's crazy to say what you said. So thanks so much for that text. Definitely appreciate you. Let's close out with a call from Damon in the 510, the 5 and Dime, Oakland, California. He's calling to ask a question, but not really ask a question, more of a statement about the Raiders. Here he is, Damon in the 510.
Hey, Q. This is Damon, 510 from the 510. Hey, I just wanted to that's not really a question. It's just basically, I just wanted to call and say, give some support to the Raiders and just say, why not us? Why not us this time? A lot of people say, oh, we're not that good of a team, and who knows, but we're a 7-win team. We might get 6 wins, and I think we're looking at a 10-win team this year at least. I think we're looking at a 10-win team. When you got Pete Carroll out there, you got Tom Brady, Chip Kelly. That's a big difference from Antonio Pierce, what's the guy we had, the guy that stunk our offensive coordinator last year. He sucked. But that guy, and Chip Kelly, big difference. It's day and night, literally. When we're playing with an injured offensive line, an injured defensive line, 3 different quarterbacks, and we were in all those games, and we still got 4 wins out of that. So when you get a brainiac like Pete Carroll, and a chessmate like Chip Kelly, man, I just feel confident about this year, man. I just really feel like it's our year. I really feel like we're going to make some noise this year. And you're going to see a lot of bandwagons, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a Raider fan. You see what Washington did last year. They got that new coordinator from Arizona, the coach from Arizona that went over there. They got a good head coach. They got a good defensive coach. And look what they did. They put up 12 wins. Nobody's seen that in their first year. So I'm just saying, man, I'm just trying to throw some light, throw some good luck for the season out there. I literally see us about 10 to 12 wins this year. Playoffs, definitely. Last year was the first year that we kind of stunk in our division, losing both time around to everybody. Besides that, we always come in second place from the Chiefs. We always beat the Chargers. We always end up 1-1 with the Chargers. We lose at their home in LA and we win at our home in Vegas. So we beat Denver all the time. You know, that was the first year that they swept us in a long time. And it shows, you know, we had a rookie coach. Like I said, let's go Raiders this year, man. I got faith in us this year. One question, sorry to be so long. Do you think that they'll use Jacoby Myers in a quarterback play this year? Because let's not forget, he do got a good arm, man. And when he hit that play a couple years back, man, he looked real nice throwing him the ball, and you thought he was gonna run it on a little screen pass, and he just threw that sucker up in the end zone, man. Anyways, Q, love what you're doing, man. Keep doing your thing. I've been listening to you for a couple of years now, man. My first time calling, though. Talk to you later, man. Go Raiders.
Thank you for the call, Damon. Appreciate you. Appreciate the optimism. And look, there's no doubt that the Raiders could be a team that goes from worst to first, right? Like you said, why not us, right? And that's the question, even though it's more of a statement, right? And I've been very adamant. I've been comfortable saying that they're at 8 wins this year upcoming, and now double what they did last year. I rather undersell and the Raiders overperform than me oversell and they underperform, if that makes sense, right? I'd rather say, look, this is a team that 8 wins feels comfortable, and then all of a sudden they go and get 10 to 11. Then it's like, hey, man, 8 was comfortable, 11's fantastic, right? Because 8's not going to get you to the playoffs. That's not going to get you postseason action. It's not going to get you game 18. But 11 wins will. 10 wins might, right? I mean, so you have an opportunity. Look, you get a couple of the one-score games that they lost, you win those. You win a couple games that you're expected to lose, you look up and all of a sudden you're like, oh, man, the Raiders are at 10 wins. How did that happen? I don't know, but they're going to the postseason. Like, it could easily happen like that. I'm just banking on the games that you're supposed to win, the games that are 50-50s, and then, all right, you win a game or two that you're not expected to. If you could pull that off, that's the recipe to get to double-digit wins. I'm going with 8 just because I feel like that's a comfortable number. Pete Carroll doesn't win less than 7 games in a season, so that was kind of my floor, and I gave one more because that doubles what they did last year. And if I go and look at the schedule, as we did when the schedule was released, it was easy for me to find 8 wins on the schedule. Now, they can get 8 wins, and I could be wrong on every one of them that I pick for a win, but I think the point is still there. 8 is a comfortable number as far as I'm concerned for the Raiders' expectations, their win-loss in 2025. But we'll see. Again, a couple bounces go their way. You know, a couple games they're not supposed to win. They win. All of a sudden, you're looking up at double-digit wins. But thanks so much, Damon, for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Got a text from Raider Adam. We'll get to that coming up on Monday. We'll get to some more calls and texts. We'll have some more news and notes, whatever's collected over the weekend. Also, as I mentioned, I have a really good interview with former NFL running back Robert Turbin. He played for Coach Carroll up in Seattle. Also, I got a chance to talk to Solomon Wilcots. That's a fantastic interview as well. SiriusXM NFL, played in the league. The dude just knows his stuff. He's fantastic when it comes to all things NFL. I got a chance to talk to him in New Orleans leading up to Super Bowl 59. He was a guest on my radio show on Thursday as well, so might be able to bring some of that to the show next week. And remember, there's another round of OTAs. One of those days will be made available that the media could be at as well. So that's going to do it for today's show. That's going to do it for the week, Raider Nation. So we're heading into the weekend. Hopefully you enjoy yourself. Enjoy whatever you do. Be safe out there. And trust and believe we'll be back on Monday here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.